How's it going, everybody? Adricker here. Earlier this month, I attended the annual event called SpinUp near Austin, Texas, and hosted by Kelly of Ready Set Drone. It's a drone-themed event centered around a day of presentations from droners that you might recognize, but also representatives from groundbreaking drone tech companies and that type of thing. You can see the full day of presentations on Ready Set Drone's YouTube channel, but my video today is just to highlight some of the fun we had before and after it. Also, I didn't really record much vlog-type video that was coherent from beginning to end, so this is my way of recapping the event a little bit easier. So the first evening, we had a meetup at a restaurant, also documented live on Kelly's channel, and then after that, we met at a random parking lot nearby for some FPV flying. I brought out my 7-inch HGRC Sector 7, which has great LEDs, to show off for the group watching line of sight. And I gotta thank Mike from Fly Zone Drones for taking this footage of it while I flew. I rarely actually see myself fly from a third-person perspective, so this is really cool. After this, we went to a bigger and darker office complex with a lot of potential. The dark conditions kept some of the guys from having good visibility, but the Cadix polar camera on my 7-inch was working really well. Up to this point, all of my footage has been DVR from the DJI goggles, no action cam yet. All was going great until my 7-inch quad fail-safed at the top of the parking deck and smashed into the concrete. The quad was pretty much okay, surprisingly, since it fell mostly on its battery on top. Sean Oz and I took turns stabbing it until it smoked and caught fire, and it became one less thing to fit in my luggage. The next day was SpinUp itself, so we listened to a lot of people talk about drone stuff at the Cedar Park Recreational Center. Kelly was also able to organize a ton of giveaways too, including a new Mavic 3. We also had a few breaks during this that we were able to do some flying. So I flew my 8-motor Cinelifter with the Blackmagic Pocket Design 4K camera for a few minutes, and it was really cool that Troy of Quad Standard Labs was actually at the SpinUp event and did a presentation. So the guy that helped invent these Cinelifters was actually there to watch me fly it. And that was pretty cool to talk to him afterward as well. I also flew my Beta 95X inside, which you saw at the beginning of this video. You can also see Original Dobo's Sicario in one of the clips, so we had a couple of these Cinelifters going around that day. And then Ken Heron flew the V-Copter, a camera drone that looks like a Mavic, but with only 2 motors. So lots of Mavics, Phantoms, and more. After the presentations were over, we went over to the other side of the Cedar Park Recreational Center and did some flying by these really awesome trees, and I had a great time flying inside of them. Kind of like tree dancing, you're just flying around all the different tree limbs and branches and leaves, and it had been a while since I was able to do this on such an impressive tree like this. I also took some people on the ride with some extra DJI FPV goggles I brought. Ken Heron had his police car handy, so I flew through both windows of his police cruiser. Interesting. We went back to the same office complex as the night before, but this time with a few more people. Security did end up rolling up on us and telling us we couldn't be there, but he said he'd give us an hour before we had to leave. So he was a pretty cool guy. We were able to get some more flying in. Unfortunately, I started to have even more fail-safes with my 7-inch quad. You may ask why I kept trying to fly it. Well, it was the only quad with the polar camera installed, and its super bright LEDs actually helped illuminate my way at times through some of these trees in the darker parts of the parking lot. But after my 4th failsafe, I hung it up and decided to rip the parking deck with my 5-inch Marmot with the normal DJI FPV camera. This was actually reminiscent of SpinUp 2019 when I did the same thing. At the time though, Original Dobo didn't fly FPV. Now he does, and it was really cool to see him turn into a great pilot.
That's the Dobo power stance.
Okay, I thought it was a depressed FPVer.
No.
How depressed he was.
That's the source of his power.
So sad.
You guys are such assholes.
I look like him.
The next day we had a flight session at the Old Settlers Park AMA field. I didn't fly too much here, but it was also really awesome to hang out and see a bunch of these Cinelifters, FPV quads, and also my first look at the Mavic 3. I had a hunch Kelly would bring it out, and sure enough. So this is when I realized I needed to get one too, so I ordered one, and I'll be putting out some content about it soon, and probably selling something else to make up for it. At this point, SpinUp started coming to a close officially, but I stayed another day to hang out with Sean Oz, Kelly, and Chris of Sunrise Water Media for even more FPV flying. I also had my first flight of the Mavic 3 using Kelly's.
Yeah, baby.
It's the same style controller as, I guess, what would that be, the Mavic Mini and Mini 2 and the Air 2 and Air 2S. Same radio so far, which is very interesting considering the drone itself looks a lot more different. That's fast. I'm in normal mode and I'm barely pushing forward. It already got above 20 miles an hour. So it feels like it's very sensitive to the sticks. And then gave it a chase with my Cinelifter while Kelly flew it for some nice B-roll of it. This was probably the scariest FPV chase session I've ever done, considering the price tag of these two drones involved. I chased a few other drones with my 5-inch, but at this point I realized my 7-inch was toast. I ultimately determined it was my Crossfire receiver that had given up the ghost, but at this specific point in time I wasn't sure if it was a problem with my Crossfire module on my radio or something else. So this made it very nerve-wracking to be flying my Cinelifter, and I was also keeping an ear out for any sort of signal loss warnings coming from my radio speaker. Luckily, everything else turned out okay. Everything else was a success. I didn't crash anything else, and I was able to get some great shots with many of the different types of quads. I think it's interesting going back and forth between footage of the Blackmagic Design Pocket Cinema 4K camera on my Cinelifter and also the GoPro Hero 8 Black with either Real Steady or Hypersmooth. Just kind of seeing the difference and what might be a good situation to use one or the other in. For instance, I was getting some nice footage with my Cinelifter for that Mavic 3, but then when I started to fly a little bit more closely and trying to, push my limits a little bit, I went back to my 5-inch because I just felt so much more relaxed and less nervous flying my 5-inch with a Hero 8 Black as opposed to a Cinelifter with an actual real camera on it. So anyway, thanks to Kelly again for putting on this awesome event. It was great to see everyone, put some more names with faces, and just kind of see everyone because it had been a few years for me. So I think this year was a success, and I hope to see you guys at the next one. And until next time, happy flying.